Dear students, today we will talk about the synchronous generators. In synchronous machines, we will discuss about the basics of and introductions of synchronous generators, in which first of all we will study about the construction of synchronous generators, and then we will also discuss the speed of rotation of a synchronous generator. This is just an introduction, as we had also seen these slides previously. This is just a recap that every machine has two main parts with regards to its construction. One is stator, this one is stator, and then another one is rotor, and this is the rotor. The inner rotating part is called rotor. This outer part is stator, which is a stationary part. And any machine has two main windings. One is field winding, the one which produces main magnetic field in AC machines is field winding. Therefore, since field winding is located on the rotor, therefore it's also called rotor winding. Another one is armature winding, where the main voltage is induced. So since this is located on stator, this is also called stator winding. There are two major classes of AC machines. One is the synchronous machine and another is induction machine. In synchronous machines, those machines are classified as synchronous machines which have magnetic field current supplied by a separate DC power source. So these are mostly used as generators. And induction machines are those machines in which field current is supplied by magnetic induction. So these are mostly used as motors. Now we come to the synchronous generators. So these are the machines which are used to convert the mechanical part to electric power. In synchronous generators, a DC current is supplied to the rotor winding, which produces rotor magnetic field. At the start, the rotor is rotated by a prime mover like diesel engine, steam turbine, gas turbine, or water turbine. So it produces a rotating magnetic field within the machine. It induces a three-phase set of voltages within the three stator windings, which are displaced 120 degrees apart from each other. The rotor of a synchronous generator is essentially a large electromagnet. We will discuss this in later slides with some pictorial view that how a large electromagnet is used as a rotor. The magnetic poles on the rotor can be of two types. One is the salient pole. Salient means protruding or sticking out of surface. The magnetic poles that stick out from the surface of the rotor. Like you can see in this diagram, the magnetic poles are sticking out of the surface. In second case, non-salient poles, the magnetic pole that flush with the rotor surface. As you can see in the diagram, they are mixed with the surface. So these non-salient poles are normally used for 2 or 4 pole rotors, while these salient poles are used for 4 or more poles. So this is non-salient case where 2-pole cylindrical rotor machine is shown, and this is 4-pole salient rotor machine where it is obvious that 2 north and south poles are shown in the salient fashion. This is again a figure showing the 2-pole salient pole generator concept. One is this north pole and then another is this south pole. Similarly, 4 poles can also be shown in salient way. So this is the 4-pole salient pole generator concept where there are 2 north and 2 south poles. A non-salient 2-pole rotor is shown over here. If you see from the top or end, this would be something like one is north and one is south, like this. If you see the side view, this is the north, here on the back side would be the south, and this is the side view of the non-salient 2-pole rotor. A salient 6-pole rotor six have 6 poles, 3 north poles and 3 south poles, which can be seen from this figure. And this figure also shows the 8-pole salient rotor and single 8-pole salient rotor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then single salient pole with field windings installed before it is mounted on the rotor. A DC current must be supplied to the field circuit on the rotor. So there are two approaches to supply this current. One is to supply the DC from a special DC source mounted directly on the shaft of the generator. Another approach is to supply DC power from an external DC source by means of slip rings and brushes. Slip rings and brushes are metal rings encircling the shaft of a machine but installed from it. A brush is a block of graphite-like carbon compound that conducts electricity freely but has very low friction, so it does not wear down the slip ring. One end of the DC rotor winding is tied to each of the two slip rings on the shaft of synchronous machine, and a stationary brush rides on each slip ring. Now we see, if the positive end of the DC voltage is connected to one end and negative on another, then the same DC voltage will be applied to field winding at all times regardless of the position or speed of the rotor. There are two problems which are faced because of slip rings and brushes. Since we use slip rings and brushes, one problem which we face is that it increases the maintenance of slip rings, since the brushes must be checked for wear regularly and replaced when needed. Another problem is that brush voltage drop can cause significant power loss on the machines with larger field current. So these are the two main problems. Slip rings and brushes are used on all smaller synchronous machines because these are cost effective. But on the case of larger synchronous machines, we will use brushless exciters, and which are basically small generators, AC generators with their field circuit on the stator and armature circuit on the rotor. So three-phase output of the exciter generator is rectified to direct current by a three-phase rectifier circuit also mounted on the shaft of the generator, and is then fed into the main DC field circuit. We will see this in this diagram, that in this diagram you can see there is an exciter which has been connected to the rotor field circuit, and this brushless exciter will have three phase rectifier which will rectify the current, and then it will reach the synchronous machine part, which is the main field on the rotor part of the circuit. If we see the stator part of the circuit, there would be three phase low current input, three phase low current input, and then it would be rectified. There would be a main armature with three phase outputs. On next slide we will see this more simplified fashion. So this is again the same figure but simplified. The upper half part is the rotor part and the lower half part is the stator part. In the upper half part, which deals with the rotor part, we can see that there is the first exciter armature, and then it has been rectified by three-phase rectifier, and then you can see that there is a winding on the rotor. Now if we come to the stator, stator is basically exciter which is input with three-phase low current input, but output have three loads with red, yellow and blue colors. As you can see from the diagram, the three-phase transmission line has three-phase generator and three-phase load. So this is basically the diagram of three-phase generator. Now similarly, a permanent magnet, as we discussed earlier, can be used in the case of rotor. In the case of stator, a pilot exciter armature is used, which will excite the three-phase rectifier with three-phase generator, and three-phase load would be connected at the end. Now we talk about the speed of rotation of synchronous generator. The electrical frequency produced is locked in or synchronized with the mechanical rate of the rotation of the generator. The rotor magnetic field points in whatever direction the rotor is turned. The rate of rotation of magnetic field is related to stator electrical frequency by Nmp over 120, and we derived this equation in previous lecture. The rotor turns at the same speed as the magnetic field. So we calculate some values according to different number of poles. We can calculate different synchronous speeds Nm. Since we know the formula for Nm, by putting the value of poles, number of poles, in the equation for variable p, and putting the value of the frequency Fe, we can easily calculate the synchronous speed. Three-phase generator and three-phase load can be, you can see how the three-phase generator is working. This is again an example which is showing a three-phase generator which is then connected with the three-phase transmission line to complete the circuit, and three-phase load is shown on the right side of the circuit. This is basically the mechanism which is shown in animation to simplify the concept for the understanding of the students. This is just a diagram showing that generator and exciter of a two-pole round rotor generator. This shows how a dam works. Dam basically it raises the river level so that to create drop of water. As you can see, the drop of water is created. Then there is a turbine which is turned by the force of the falling water. As the turbine turns, the generator is turned by this turbine, which produces electrical energy, which is then transmitted to transmission lines, and transmission lines carry electricity to homes and businesses. So, dear students, this is for today. Thank you.